Hello.
Hi, Jungyoon. How are you?
Hey.
What's going on? Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time. Sorry, I knew the turnaround was really quick, so thank you for you guys for jumping on.
Oh no, thanks for having us.
So I have to say, okay, so I saw this at Holly Shorts first, and I have not forgotten about it all year. I do not know if it is because I am also adopted. The circumstances are very different. Um, I knew who I knew who my birth mother was, but I didn't feel the need. I'm just spilling my guts here. I didn't, I didn't feel the need to have any contact with her other than, she was like my Facebook friend, stuff like that. Um, so even though the circumstances are very different, I feel like my heart latched onto this, um, very easily. So, thank you for taking the time. Sorry. Um,
Yeah.
I guess I just wanted to know from you, this movie really does lead with a strong curiosity, a strong, um, I won't say strong heart, but I mean that's the only thing that I can think of. I think the idea of a child desperate to know who they are and where they come from is a very palpable, very um passionate thing, and I was just curious, where do you start with this, because I feel like um th- the film is very, very special. So yeah, I'm rambling already.
Oh,
No worries. Um, Thank you for that, and I'm really glad that you that it stuck with you.
Mhm.
And the adoptee community, whether it's Korean or not, is a really important audience for me to
Mhm.
receive the film. But yeah, I mean, I myself am not adopted, but we the story came from my conversations with adoptees when I was living in Korea,
Mhm.
and then we talked to many adoptees around the world, basically anyone who could speak to, who was willing to speak to us about the film,
Mhm.
Korean adoptees, and their individual experiences were all over the map. There were
Mhm.
some who did grow up desperately wanting to know and wanting to find their birth uh, parents or mother and connect with them.
Mhm.
And there were others who had no interest or curiosity. And they were just kind of like, maybe one day, maybe not, but it's just not something right now that I feel the need to do.
Mhm.
Um, so it was really varied, but we wanted to explore the story of reconnection and miscommunication, misunderstanding, and deception, and everything that was involved
Mhm.
um, in this experience, because that's what impacted me the most personally. Um, and so it was a lot of interviewing the adoptees who did grow up wanting to find their birth mothers,
Mhm.
and asking them what their emotional journeys had been, where it was coming from, how it was affecting them, and then trying to translate that into this character without going too in depth about, it's not a feature, so I wasn't going to go in so in depth about this character's upbringing, but
Mhm.
just to have that core um, be true to the character.
Yeah, there's I was gonna ask about like the sort of like the lying and the misdirection and stuff like that, but when I rewatched it, I sort of had uh, a very sort of visceral. I was very angry. I was just so, and I can't imagine what it would feel like for this young woman. Especially, there's a moment when the two men go inside and they like shove her out, and then I just kept thinking of her standing outside, before she sees them leave and before she gets on the bike. Like, what would you do? Like, all these people are, saying these things to her. Um, Jung Yoon, I guess I just wanted to know from you, what was the first thing that you latched on in terms of wanting to be a part of this? Just Just, everything I've been saying about, feeling a need as a viewer. I just wanted to know what you latched onto yourself.
Yeah, I mean, for me, oh, first of all, Jerry, thank you for having us, and a few things. Hearing just you talk about it in the way that you did, that's what I was hoping that this movie would hopefully reach
Mhm.
out to those audiences for. As I think as a producer, and Christina and I have been working for a long time together. We've always been very inclined to explain and really just create a discourse of social impact matters that we find are very prevalent within Korean culture, but amongst the Korean community, Korean American community, Asian American community. We actually made a short even before this one about Asian women having plastic surgery,
Mhm.
and so we've just kind of have always been, or that's our always been our interest, is like how there are these kind of unspoken things, especially regarding the Korean adoptee community, that that were so overlooked for a long time, and we wanted to really and have an honest perspective about it. And Christina being a third generation Korean American, me being an immigrant to this country, what we've sort of kind of recognized within our life experiences were sometimes when you're trying to seek the truth, whatever that truth is that you're seeking, there is some kind of a sobering loss
Mhm.
that comes with that experience. And often, yes, there are life lessons, but whatever that loss is, it's never always, we never felt like it was never that perfect dreamy picture that one had dreamt of, right?
Mhm.
And that's what something that we really wanted to, Motherland. I think if even in the beginning of the short, we know what this is going to be about, right? And even at the end, like every time I rewatch it, the moment when Leah touches the biological mom's hand, and I
Mhm.
don't know if that was felt or not for you, but
Mhm.
it's the way that the little gesture that is made, and that's all she was yearning for, and for her to get there throughout this entire movie. What did she actually gain from that? And that was kind of the big question that I've always wanted to ask the audience as a producer,
Mhm.
and what emotions were felt for everyone in that moment. And I think emotionally as a producer, that's what I've truly latched on, like that moment. And how do we get there? How do we build that moment throughout this entire film? Hope that makes any sense.
Oh yeah, no. No, totally it does. No, there's talking about that, the final, the just her sitting there across from her felt so monumental to me. Like I almost feel like, I imagine Leah has a bazillion questions. Um, but something about just the image of her sitting down, like, the weight of your body sitting down across from the person that you've been had questions about, been hunting for, been yearning to see, to have them look into your eyes. There's sort of like a weight that I feel kind of lifts almost, despite the presence of, a bazillion other questions.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, Christina, I did want to ask you, in terms of Leah making this journey, I'm very curious about like character backstory and motivations before like a film starts, and sometimes after they end. I was curious about how long maybe this character has been waiting to put this series of actions into motion to find her.
Yeah, I mean, we wrote a couple of different versions of her backstory, what was leading her up to this moment.
Mhm.
And I think it's a combination of a lot of things based on the talk that we had with adoptees. I think that this character is one who had longed to know and kind of dreamt and daydreamed about who this person might be.
Mhm.
And because a lot of Korean adoptees are, not all, but a lot are adopted to very white communities in America, they often grow up without being surrounded by other Koreans or Korean Americans or even Asians.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of disconnect between how they appear and what they feel, and kind of, identity questions regarding that. So I
Mm,
think that all of that was in play for this character. And I also know that because there's a lot of deception with the adoption agencies, doctoring documents, writing things on documents that aren't true,
oh my God.
lying to adoptive parents, telling adoptive parents that this was a teen pregnancy and you're saving a life, only for that to be a complete lie, and for it to turn out that the adoptive parents, actually maybe dropped the child off at the orphanage temporarily and really wanted to come back and get them, and the child is gone. So just all of that, I think, was kind of in our imaginations for this character
Mhm.
leading up to the point when she goes. I think there's some anger and resentment in this character that we can feel as she goes on this journey, even when she's sitting across from an adoption agency. She's already feeling very charged. So I think it's a combination
Yeah.
of these things that we imagined.
Yeah, when I lived in upstate New York, I had a day job at like a ticketing office, and there was a girl that I used to work with. She was a little bit younger than me. She um is Chinese, adopted to white parents. And this, I mean, Rochester, where we were living, Rochester, I always joke, I was like, Rochester is like the whitest place I've ever lived. And she and I like bonded very slightly over both being adopted, but she she would talk to me a little bit about, she didn't go into too much detail about, growing up in a sort of very conservative white household. And I always got this like immediate, not sadness from her, but I always just felt like there was something that, I don't know, my heart really went out to her, because I felt like as a child, there was like this, sadness that, I don't know, it was just something that I really picked up on, that I couldn't identify with, fully. But as an adopted kid, both of us being adopted kids, I really sort of connected her with about that. Um just another random sidebar about about my
Mhm.
life talking about that.
Mhm.
Um I wanted to ask about the connection between Leah and, I'm so sorry, forgive me, I'm forgetting the other character's name, the younger guy. Um
Uh,
there is um there is such an, invisible, I don't want to say tether, but there is automatic sympathy from him, that I feel him towards her. And I really love the chemistry between the two of them, despite the fact that he's always, he's interpreting for her. He's a little helpless himself. I guess I wanted to know from you, like, what was important to you about those interactions and small conversations between them.
Yeah, that character was very important because I think he represents a new generation of Koreans
Mhm.
being more open-minded and progressive. And in our research, it's something that we found, not all the time, but oftentimes the sibling or step sibling that is found is the one who's more receptive to
Mhm.
speaking and reconnecting, rather than the parents or grandparents. And so we felt like that was an opportunity for her to, maybe it doesn't work out the way she imagines with her mother, but with this brother or stepbrother, there is a real connection, and a connection made between them, and an understanding and a kind of love that's there. Um, I feel like he's almost apologizing for the actions of his
Mhm.
family in a way.
Yeah.
And but he's restricted too by, the familial uh, responsibilities that he has to kind of do what he's told to do, keep certain secrets and whatnot. um
Mhm.
so I think I wanted to show how all of these bigger structures are part of the oppression, and it's not all individual choices that are
Mhm.
leading to these to the situation. And in my mind, like, they do reconnect in the future. And
Yeah.
they do maintain some kind of relationship in the future.
That was gonna be jump to my last question is just because I feel like there is such um a pull for people in terms of finding out who they are and where they come from. I was gonna ask you both what you think. I don't want to like have you tell me what would happen because I'm sort of against like what I call gimme culture where everyone needs to know everything at all the time. But there's such a delicacy to this, and there's such a my mind every time that I watch it, my mind could not stop racing about like where the story goes next. Um, I did kind of want to ask about the final moments of the movie. I just want to ask about the specific music cue if I could. I don't know where that music that song is planted in my brain, but I don't know where it is. And every time I've watched it, I've like pulled out my phone and Shazammed it and looked at, maybe where the song is played in other places. And maybe I can't pinpoint, I don't know, but I like that song and I was curious if that had any sort of significance or meaning.
Yeah, well, long story, the way that I came to that song is that when I was living in Korea for 2 years in my mid 20s, and I never spent time in Korea,
Mhm.
very kind of grew up very Americanized. I felt a lot of alienation and disconnection and weirdness being in this country that I'm sure doesn't even come close to how adoptees feel, but might be in the same realm somehow. Appearing like every other Korean and blending in perfectly, but not understanding all the language, not knowing the culture, not
Mhm.
fully understanding how it all works. And so when I lived there for 2 years, I'm not super familiar with Korean music, but I would ride in taxi cabs and these old taxi drivers would be playing whatever music they like from their radios. And I just remember late nights of being in taxis and drivers playing these like old Korean folk songs
Mhm.
that I thought were so beautiful and I was so moved by and I'd never heard before and felt like this is part of me too. This is part of
Yeah.
my culture and whatever blood. This is part of who I am in a
Yeah.
way. So I was always very moved by that, and I also think it's interesting because Korean folk music is obviously very influenced by American folk music, blending of world. So when I was looking for music for the ending, I wanted something that kind of represented that feeling
Mm.
and the kind of blending of cultures too.
Okay.
It's not a traditional Korean song; it's a folk song, like kind of in the vein of like Simon and Garfunkel or something. So
Hmm.
yeah, so I did research and that is the one that I found and loved. And the lyrics also, the song is called, actually I'm not sure if I'm confusing to Jungyoon, is that The Endless Road? I
Yes.
think it
Yeah.
is. Yes, yeah, it's called The Endless Road. And the lyrics, if you look them up, the lyrics are very much about like uh not knowing what the future holds,
Mhm.
walking along this road, leaving someone, will you see them again? So
Mhm.
it just kind of fit perfectly in all ways.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay. Well, thank you both so much for letting me talk with you. It's there's a sort of comfortable ache to this that there's something about it where there's something about Leah's determination um to find stuff out for herself that I find sort of inspiring that I hope more people who see this movie can sort of, if they want to find out more, that they can, and they can be determined to find answers for themselves. But like the ache part that I think that's very important. Like, I'm not saying ache isn't like a bad thing. It's just like there's this, I don't know, it taps into something very immediate and lonely, but there's an answer for that loneliness. So that is something that I personally really took away from it, and I just think it's a really special movie. So thank you for taking the time to talk to me and just letting me
Thank
gush
you so
and ramble at
much.
you so for 20 minutes. So, yeah,
No, thank you.
yeah,
I'm so glad that it moved you, and yeah, it means a lot.
yeah. All
Yeah,
right. Well,
will we see you tonight, or let's, you know,
do you guys have an event tonight?
I think there's like a Holly Shorts, like a FYC
Oh, that's
screen.
great.
Yeah.
No, I'm not in LA, unfortunately. I'm in the I always joke I'm in the flat Midwest. So it's reaching
Ah.
lots of people. Yeah. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. All right, well, have fun tonight. Good luck to you this season. And I can't wait for more people to discover it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you so
Bye,
much.
guys.